The Krath Empire submitted a request for ceasefire at 0839 hours on day 57. The terms were negotiated over 3 days aboard a neutral station with Ambassador Chen representing the Terran Federation, Elder Vael representing the Kelvari Communion, and 3 senior Krath delegates representing the Empire. Drevyak, still in medical recovery, submitted a formal written statement endorsing his empire's negotiating position. Around the negotiating table, Chen, Vael, the Krath delegation, serious, quiet. The specific atmosphere of people who are all exhausted and need this to be over. Many beings in the galaxy had expected the Terran Federation's terms to be harsh, punitive. The kind of terms a species with humanity's military capability might extract from a position of total victory over an aggressor. They were not. Full withdrawal from all Kelvari space. Return of all Kelvari civilians taken captive. Complete accounting. Every individual documented and repatriated. Reparations payments structured over 30 years at a rate the Krath economy could sustain without collapse. A formal Krath acknowledgement of the illegality of their expansion operation under the treaty frameworks they had previously ignored. No occupation of Krath territory. No regime change demands. No war crimes tribunals, though a private Terran intelligence assessment noted that sufficient evidence for such proceedings existed and was retained. Krath lead delegate. Quietly, to Chen during a break in proceedings. I expected worse. Ambassador Chen, without looking up from her documents. I know. Krath lead delegate. Why? You won. Completely. You could have demanded anything. Chen set down her documents and looked at him. Ambassador Chen, because the goal was never to punish you. The goal was to stop the invasion and get the Kelvari their people back. We did that. A Krath empire that survives this and remembers what happened here is worth more to long-term galactic stability than a shattered empire that breeds resentment for the next 1,000 years. We know how that story ends. We've written several versions of it. She held his gaze. Don't mistake restraint for weakness, delegate. We know exactly what we could have demanded. We chose not to. The choosing was deliberate. The Krath delegate was quiet for a long time. The resolution of the Krath invasion was formally noted by the Galactic Council in a document that managed, in 12,000 years of practiced diplomatic language, to say almost nothing of substance. It acknowledged the cessation of hostilities. It commended the parties for reaching a negotiated settlement. It expressed general support for the principles of peaceful resolution of conflicts. It did not mention what had actually happened. It did not mention the supply line interdictions, the communication network penetration, the deep space special operations extraction of over 100,000 prisoners from 40 light-years inside enemy territory, the systematic dismantling of a vastly larger military force by a smaller one through a combination of intelligence dominance, technological superiority, and strategic thinking that several military analysts quietly admitted they had never seen outside of theoretical modeling. It certainly did not mention Ares's polite, direct transmission to the Krath command fleet, explaining their own situation to them and offering them the choice to end it. A quiet conference room. Elder Vael and Ambassador Chen sitting across from each other. No aides, no formal setting. 2 people at the end of something large, speaking honestly. Elder Vael, may I ask you something personal, Ambassador? Ambassador Chen, you can ask. Elder Vael, how does your people live with it? Chen tilted her head slightly, waiting. The capacity for this. What you did in the past 8 weeks. My people have been pacifists for 6,000 years. We chose that path because we believe violence corrodes the being that practices it. We believe it leaves a mark that never fully heals. And your species has been living with this capacity, developing it, refining it, for millennia. How do you live with knowing what you're capable of? Chen looked out at the stars through the porthole for a moment. Ambassador Chen, I don't think I can answer that in a way that would fully satisfy a philosopher. But I can tell you what I actually think. She turned back. We live with it because we remember what the alternative looks like. Humans have the history we have precisely because of what happens when you don't maintain the capacity to stop violence. When the people who want to take everything are only stopped by the people willing and able to stop them. We learned that lesson over and over, the hard way, for thousands of years, at enormous cost. Your communion chose peace 6,000 years ago, and you've maintained it honestly. I respect that more than I can tell you. But peace isn't passive, Elder. Someone somewhere is always keeping it. The galaxy thinks it's peaceful, because the ancient civilizations on that council have been around long enough that the last beings who tried open conquest of a major power are long dead. They've forgotten what that cost. Chen met Viel's eyes. The Krath hadn't forgotten. They thought the cost was acceptable, because they didn't think anyone would make them pay it. Elder Viel, and now they know someone will. Ambassador Chen, continuing quietly, and now they know someone will. In the months following the end of the Krath conflict, several things happened across the galaxy that observers noted with interest. 4 civilizations that had previously declined to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Terran Federation quietly contacted the embassy in New Nairobi to open negotiations. 3 civilizations that had been facing low-level territorial pressures from larger neighbors reported that those pressures had, without specific incident, suddenly eased. The Krath Empire's internal political situation underwent significant changes, none of which the Terran Federation had asked for or encouraged. And the Galactic Council, in a session noted for its unusually short debate period, passed an amendment to the collective security protocols that had been proposed and defeated 11 times in the previous century. The amendment passed by 9,300 votes. Nobody explicitly said why the vote had changed. Nobody needed to. Ambassador Chen, alone for a moment, in a window-lined corridor of the Terran Federation embassy, looking out at stars. Her expression is complicated. The expression of someone carrying something heavy that they've chosen to carry and would choose again. Elder Viel on Ethan, in the open-sky council chamber, looking up. His skin is a quiet, warm gold, the Calvary color of something like peace, and something like gratitude, and something like a new and more complete understanding of what peace actually requires. The galaxy is old, and in its age it had grown comfortable with certain assumptions, that the species which had survived long enough to reach the stars had earned a kind of settled wisdom, that the dangerous questions had been answered, that the dark chapters were behind them. But the galaxy was also full of beings who had forgotten that peace is not a state the universe grants automatically to those who desire it. It is something that must, sometimes, be defended. And the galaxy had spent 2 centuries quietly fearing the one species that had never stopped knowing how to do that. What it had not expected was to discover that the same species, when given a clean victory and the power to extract any terms it chose, would look at that power and say, "We only wanted to stop the harm. The war is over. Let's go home." For the Kelvari Communion, still a pacifist civilization, still a people who believed in life as sacred, still a culture that had not fought a war of its own in 6,000 years, a new phrase entered the language in the years following: It had no clean translation into Standard Galactic. The closest approximation was to hold peace in a hand that could be a fist. They built a monument in the capital of Velsora, not to war, not to the Terran Federation, not to themselves, to the 101,416 people who came home when the galaxy had expected them not to. And on the base of the monument, in both Kelvari glyphs and standard human English, was a single line. Someone came.